Unpredictable teams in this sport. Someone asked me this the other day, and I said, I'm going to save that for the show Sunday night. I think Texas A&M, for my money, is the most unpredictable teams, or one of the most unpredictable teams in college football this year. And their over-under win total is 8.5. So basically, odds makers have said the same thing. They've said, we're going to throw out 8.5. We really understand that could mean 6 wins. That could mean 10 wins. If we simulate their season 100 times, it probably lands on 8 or 8.5. Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino is something that if you follow this sport year-round like we do, you're tired of talking about. I'm tired of talking about it. The rest of the casual crowd that's just coming back to the watering hole is just now starting to talk about it. I imagine every day there is someone somewhere that treats this sport as seasonal that's just now realizing, wait a second, Fisher hired Hoomst? Petrino? That's not going to work. And you're over there like, yeah, we know. Well, do we know? This is what makes them very unpredictable. Now, our buddies over there at Texags, they essentially run College Station. I saw Billy Lucci and company. They had Jimbo up on stage at, I think, their launch party, their season launch party. And he gave a really good, really in-depth answer. I didn't ask Lucci to license the footage, so I'll just paraphrase. Someone, it was Lucci, who asked him, Jimbo Fisher being on stage, about Bobby Petrino, and he was talking about how familiarity was really, really key in hiring him. And he got a little more technical. He got a little more in the weeds. He talked about, for example, how injury at the tight end position last year really zapped a lot of what they could do just from a blocking standpoint. And I know that no one thinks about that. If you're not an A&M fan, you look at that team from 50,000 feet. I'm partially guilty of that as well. And you just drop the old, well, don't complain about the labor pains, just show me the baby. I don't advise saying that in the delivery room per se, but figuratively in the football world, people say it a lot. And so anyway, maintain health. That's a key for everyone. If you hired an offensive coordinator here and your familiarity is something that pays off and your talent is realized, Texas A&M could be a 10-win team or better. There is certainly a path there where their offensive line, where there are questions that they have confidence in, but still questions, pans out. That defensive line's loaded with talent. If you have synergy offensively, that certainly means Connor Wegman as a quarterback has lived up to the potential that saw him get offers from pretty much everyone out of high school. If all that happens, that's a double-digit win team. It's a team that has the potential, to be a double-digit win team. But there's also that scenario for total non-improvement. There's the scenario where none of that works out. It's all just something that looks good, boom, on a piece of paper, but they don't play games on paper. And then it's just like a mushroom cloud over the program by November again. And if that happens again, then I think we're having a much more uncomfortable conversation in December. Miami in the ACC is an equally interesting and, dare I say, unpredictable team because I am wildly unsure of how quick the new coordinator hires will start to gain traction in terms of on-field result. Sometimes you hire a new coordinator or you hire a new coach or whatever the case may be. Maybe you get a big true freshman class in the house and things are paying off behind the scenes, but you have to wait a year for it to pay dividends in the win-loss column. Well, we haven't waited a year. We've got Lance Guidry in there as the new defensive coordinator. We got Shannon Dawson. We did a great 30-plus minute sit-down with him that's still on the YouTube channel where he started to break down his offense a little bit, albeit from a surface level, which I asked him to do. How quickly will that pay off? Now, here's the good news, and it's going to sound like bad news, but I think it's kind of good news. With Miami, they were terrible last year. I think aside from the Georgia Tech game, I don't think they topped 24 points against any Power 5 competition, which is, it's so bad, it's actually a good thing, which sounds convoluted. What I mean by that is it almost is too bad, which means there was just something systematically that had to be flushed. And if you're a Miami fan, you hope that that was the offensive coordinator. Josh Gaddis was down there. He's not there anymore. And you look at your talent. I'm not saying they've got the most stacked roster in the conference or college football or even, I don't know, maybe the state of Florida. They're a whole lot better than that, though. And that quarterback is a whole lot better than that. I know because we saw it the year before. So if we have a new offensive coordinator in there that just does the simple stuff right, that just puts guys in position to make plays, it's so easy to say that. I would be such a great offensive coordinator if we didn't actually have to call plays. If just that happens, And then you have defensive improvement, which can't get worse than last year. Yeah, there's this path where they could go 9 wins this year. That would be really good for Miami. Their over-under win total 7.5. Offensive line should be massively upgraded for them this year. That's what they were the most excited about when I was down there 2 months ago now. Time all runs together. Quarterback, just give me a healthy Tyler Van Dyke and give me competent offensive coordinator service, and that should be better. And the energy around the program is always high in the summer and the spring. I know that. But Miami's one of those teams could go wildly either way. Those results could fluctuate wildly this year. I think the same thing about Wisconsin in the Big Ten. I think that's one of the more unpredictable teams this year. I did not play it on the show, but I sat down with Luke Fickell the other day, new head coach at Wisconsin. Again, picture that casual in your social circle who likes to, I don't know, go check out tennis in spring, likes to get some golf in. That's fine. And the first that they check back in on college football is around this time of year. Do they know? Are they aware that Luke Fickell has gone from Cincinnati to Wisconsin, of all places? I got a full interview with him on the YouTube channel, but I want to play you part of it here in just a second because, listen, you know Wisconsin football the same way I do, and it's been a bowling ball of an offense for about 500 years, and all of a sudden we got a new guy who comes in there who we thought would never leave for a job other than Ohio State or the NFL, and he takes the Wisconsin job, and then he goes and hires who? He goes and hires Phil Longo as his offensive coordinator, and he goes and gets Tanner Mordecai and more pieces out of the portal. So I wanted to know, not from a preview magazine, but from the horse's mouth there, what's this offense going to look like? What is Wisconsin football moving forward? Roll it, Colin. Basically, every one of us who grew up on college football, we know Wisconsin as pretty much the same thing. And now I look at it and I wonder, all right, well, how much of that is maintained? And then how much of it, when I watch Wisconsin this fall and in the coming years, will make me say, wow, that's Wisconsin. Yeah. I want to ask you, where are things headed?
We'll have to just see about that. It'll look different. I mean, we all hopefully understand that and brace ourselves for that. It definitely looks different. But I don't think when you really get down to it, the brass tacks of things, that it's that much different. It's still about the game. It's one up front. It's still about the big guys. Yes, it might be a little bit more balanced. You know, if Wisconsin in the past had been, you know, a little bit balanced, more run than pass, it might be the same thing, pass to run, but it's going to be balanced. It's going to be physical. It's going to start with the ability to be able to run the football. It's just going to be in different ways.
I would be so excited if I was a Wisconsin fan right now, and if I worked in the Big Ten office, I'd be excited there too. I think it's an underrated roster that can be utilized properly when adding transfer portal pieces, especially at quarterback and on the perimeter end like they've done. Excellent portal moves here. We'll talk more about that later. Luke Fickell's a stud head coach. I'm still surprised that he's at Wisconsin. It's not disrespect to them. I just thought the list was like microscopically short when it comes to the places that he would leave Cincinnati for, and I thought maybe NFL would be one of them. This is a beyond a grand slam. Whatever the 5-run home run is, that's what they hit there. And then he goes and gets Phil Longo as his offensive coordinator. I was looking at their schedule earlier, and, oh, man, Colin and I are in lockstep. Whew, wow. Colin never appears in my ear during the show, but even he just made a comment in my ear. I appreciate it. So think about this. If you're listening on podcasts, think about this schedule. You tell me where they are the big double-digit underdog. They've got Iowa at home. They've got at Illinois. They got Ohio State at home. That one's a double-digit spread. That's about a 2-touchdown, somewhere between 10 and 14 points is where that figures to be. At Indiana, Nebraska, at Minnesota. My point there is they could lose every one of those games. They could go 1, 2, 3, 4. They could go 5-1 against that list. It's a really unpredictable team. I think it is the perfect recipe for a ton of close back-and-forth one-possession games. Think Nebraska over the last few years, just maybe them winning more of the one-possession games than losing them. Let's go all the way out to the West Coast. I need to talk to you about friend of the program, Chip Kelly, and I need to talk to you about his team, UCLA. They lost Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Been a quarterback there for a long time. They lost their top 3 pass catchers. Not ideal. However, they added Dante Moore, 5-star quarterback, got him to flip from Oregon. Huge, monumental acquisition. I'm also going to talk about UCLA and the portal later in the show. But also, speaking of the portal, they went and got Carson Steele, who frankly, sounds like a kid that should be playing in the South or the Northeast because he transferred from Ball State. He's a running back who I think had to leave his pet alligator behind. Grishy, isn't that right? So, prayers sent for both Carson and the Gator. I'm sure they'll be reunited down the road. I love the moves they made. I don't like them. I love the moves they made. Now, if you don't already know, let me tell you, the Pac-12 could be a total knife fight, just total meat grinder this year. Not in a sense that they have 7 or 8 playoff contenders out there. And I know that the majority of college football is busy worrying about whether that conference will even exist as a power unit or a power conference a few years from now. I don't even know the answer to that. But I'm telling you, in the meantime, really good product on the field this year. UCLA smack dab in the middle of that top 5 or 6 that have, roughly comparable odds to win the conference, or at least have a shot to. Their over-under win total is 8.5. Now, if you normally lose a multi-year starter at quarterback and you haven't been recruiting in the top 10, and you're UCLA, let's just state it like it is, chances are you're expected to fall off a cliff. And you're going to be the victim in a lot of those close games. Or you're going to be the one that totes the L in a lot of that competitively balanced league. Well, what if the quarterback depth they got behind Dante Moore shines? Or what if Dante Moore's ready to play as a true freshman? Or what if he doesn't have to be a star? Because they got guys like Steele, for example, out of the portal to tote the mail there at running back. I think it could be a sneaky good team. I also think they could just be a victim of being pretty good and not really good. Because the pretty good, really good gap is the difference between 9-3 and 6-6 out there this year. And the last one I want to touch on, and this one we talked about before, but it's been a couple of months, so I want to remind you, back in the spring, I had producer Jesse just compile all the odds in every conference to win that conference. And when we started looking at the Big 12, we noticed that there was a team that played virtually none of the top teams in the conference and played virtually all of the bottom teams in the conference, and that's Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State sits here with a preseason over-under win total of 6. Last year was a disaster for them. I saw them in person, and they got blanked and had about half 100 hung on them in Manhattan, Kansas. They had a portal exodus. On the surface, it looks terrible. That is not at all the vibe that you get around the program, though. The vibe you get around the program is a lot of the guys we lost, we weren't exactly torn up to see go. We had the worst injury luck we've ever had in the history of this program, Mike Gundy or otherwise, last year. And we also added some pieces out of the portal. And look at our schedule. Now, I'm saying that last part. They don't say that. I'm saying that last part. They have a very, very workable path here. Now, I know good and well a lot of folks on that schedule also look forward to being able to play Oklahoma State. This is not like talking about Texas or talking about Ohio State where everyone looks at them and goes, ooh, maybe we got an outside shot. That's probably a loss. No, folks look at Oklahoma State, they expect to beat them. That wouldn't be the first time that program's been treated like that. I just think there's a lot more lingering doubt this year because of how last year ended. But they have not made a habit of going 500 or worse out there. In fact, they've made a habit of overachieving. I'm very interested to see if a rebound like that can happen again this year.